Alright everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another KDA update. So it's been a little while since we did our last KDA update, so I want to go through a few different charts, talk about the market structure over on Kadena right now, talk about what's going on with the altcoin market cap, look at some momentum indicators, and then we're going to be talking about where do I think Kadena is going to go in the immediate short term, but more importantly, what is the exact price target that I'm going to be buying Kadena at the bear market low, and when am I going to be selling in the next bull market? What price do I think this is going to be going up to? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's jump right into this. So before we overly analyze KDA, why is KDA moving to the downside in the immediate short term? So in the higher time frames, if we look at this chart, this is basically since when I started covering KDA at 650. You can see you have these moments where you have these macro swings back up to the upside, very over exuberant moves, and every single time you have these, you always have a lower high. So with this, we're doing exactly what we've been predicting for ages on KDA. It looks like we're finally solidifying this lower high. On the daily time frame, Heikanashis are starting to move down. Weekly time frame, we do have a red Heikanashi candle, so this should be very indicative. I mean, look at this, the weekly Heikanashis for KDA. The last time they flipped bearish was up here at 680. So this definitely looks very brutal to me. We had a nice run up in volume, but now it looks like bears are getting ready to take control over KDA. So looking at KDA, the market structure, we've made a lower high. So in of itself, if we're just looking at KDA, we can say this is why we're topping out. If we zoom out a little bit, look at some traditional markets, just very briefly before we jump in the charts, you can see the SPY stock market has rallied up to resistance once again, and it's starting to move down. The move to the downside is definitely being led by the Nasdaq right now, and this is not good for crypto because if you're a veteran of the channel, you would have heard me and look at the Nasdaq many times in correlation to crypto, because Bitcoin is highly correlated to tech stocks, and the Nasdaq is a indices of tech stocks on the stock market. So as you can imagine, the Nasdaq moving to the downside after coming into this kind of double top formation that's been doing time after time again should mean that Bitcoin should be getting ready to move back down to the downside. I definitely think 22,000 down to approximately 21,000 is in play for Bitcoin in the immediate short term. I'm still calling for bear market lows round about these ranges between 16,000 to 14,000 for Bitcoin. But there we go, traditional markets heading down. This is pulling Bitcoin down, and to top it all off, you've got the dollar, which is breaking out of a bull flag right now at this moment in time. So the dollar is looking to head up to the upside while the stock market is coming into resistance and is starting to head down. So now we know why KDA is going to the downside outside of the realm of KDA. Obviously, we know why KDA is moving down specifically. There's more sellers than buyers in the market at this moment in time. If we do head over to the volume, you can see, really starting in the past couple of days, we're getting a good amount of volume stepping in. And the same way, if you look at the last major rally we had, it was in favor of the bulls. It was this move from 130 all the way up to 346. And within this move, you can see you had multiple days where the volume just kept on exponentially increasing. And if we start seeing something like this, where the volume starts tapering up in favor of the bears, then KDA is going to drastically move to the downside. Now, before we do look at what's going to play out in the immediate short term, I did just want to revisit this very plain simple chart. The reason why I love this so much is because it doesn't show the entire history of KDA. It doesn't need to, because this is exactly where I started covering KDA. If you're a veteran, you remember I started covering at 650. I've been bearish ever since, and we've been sitting on the sidelines ever since. KDA is down more than 72% since I started covering this. I mean, even if you look at this most recent rally that people got out of bed for, this is 62% cheaper than when I initially started making these videos on KDA. And I remember, a month or two, a couple months before that, we rallied up on the 15th of May, and people were saying, my $1 prediction wouldn't be in play then. But every single time we have these moves, it's literally a lower high in the market. So KDA, the market structure is absolutely unchanged. If we put some EMA ribbons on this, what you can see is even more brutal. The weekly might not load in, so we'll look at the weekly EMA ribbons over here. What you can see is for the weekly EMA ribbons on Kadena, we tried to push up to these. These recently flipped bearish, and I remember initially saying when these flip bearish, it is possible we can turn up to these. I have to admit, I said I really wouldn't count on it, so it's not exactly like I predicted this. I said this could be something that we do, and we definitely went up We came almost up to the weekly EMA ribbons. Weekly EMA ribbons are actually up here at 296, and we recently came up to 262, so not too far away, but it looks like we've moved up to the weekly EMA ribbons. They're still drastically moving to the downside. You know, we've looked over here, you've got a decent amount of volume coming in on the lower time frames. Hopefully this flows into the weekly, because I want to talk about that in a second. Am I still predicting this $1 price target? Obviously it's better for me if price moves down, because I've been predicting that we're going to move down. Now, if we look at the EMA ribbons on the daily, this is where it gets even more brutal. When was the last time that we flipped bullish on the EMA ribbons? It was at $12.32. We had a rally up to $16.87. So we had a very big move, a 37% move above these daily EMA ribbons. We came back down for the back test, we lollygagged, and we broke down. We had a failed move above the EMA ribbons. What have we done in this instance? Well, we went above the EMA ribbons, we kind of came back for the back test, and now we completely capitulated beneath them. So when we flipped bullish, this was the time to return back to them, back test them as support. What did we do? Well, today, which is why I'm updating you today, my friends, we've completely capitulated beneath the bottom of these. So we had, you know, this move was about 38.5% move. So very similar with what we had over here, or over here rather, from the last daily EMA ribbon flip. And in my opinion, you know, once again, what we're seeing now is absolutely no different. The market structure is unchanged. If we pull back our initial chart, what you can also see is an area of, let me go through this multiple times, because what you can see is we broke down into this, we pumped up to it, this was resistance here, we broke down, then we pumped back above it, this was retested as support, then it was flipped as resistance, resistance. You can see this was resistance here, we were pushed down on the daily, we pushed back above it the next day, came back down, retested it as support, came back up, and now we're kind of just sitting beneath it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we head down a little bit more, potentially come up to somewhere like $1.90, $2, $1.80 before that next major leg down. But you can see, you know, highlighted here how many touch points we've got all over this previous support slash resistance phase, and the last time we touched it, it was support. This would have been green. So we're going to find out now, you know, are we retesting this area as support? Are we retesting it as resistance? Because if we close beneath $1.83 on the daily time frame, so if we're sitting at $1.80 now, if we're still sitting around there by the end of the day, in the next couple of days, then in my opinion we're definitely going to be dragged down in the immediate short term, down to about 164. Where do I see us coming from 164? If we zoom out, we've talked about this before. We've got fixed volume profiles showing major supports round about the regions between $1 and 8 cents. And then this leads me to my next question. You know, if you go on my profile, type in KDA, you'll see that for months and months now, I've been calling for $1. I've been calling for lower price targets since we've been at $6.50. Am I still calling for $1? Absolutely, nothing has changed. The market structure's not changed. Once again, look at the EMA ribbons. They are 100% bearish. We've had another failed move above these, and even if we just take this away, look at this in its simplest form. You can see on this chart, we've got a high, breakdown, semi-decent run-up, breakdown, massive over-exuberant run-up, massive over-exuberant breakdown, over-exuberant run-up, and then once again you've got another local top up here. And every single time you do this, you establish the local top. You know the local top is in because you start seeing these dramatically bearish engulfing candles. Like, look here, you thought it would have been over, you know, from the move from $4.36. We went down to $1.36 in about a week or two. So do not be surprised once you start seeing these bearish engulfing candles show up on KDA. That is a telltale sign that we're going to be rocketed to the next level, to the downside. And as we've previously talked about, we've got everything. I believe we've got fibs at $1.05, $1.04. If we pull this up, your 1 point, let's see this. Okay, no, it must be from this low to this high up here. I believe we've got a fib at 105. Down here, yeah, $1.05. Once again, fixed volume profiles showing support down here at $1.85. If we look up on the VPVR, where do we pull up to? we pull up to an area where there was basically no volume traded and there was no buyers. No one was interested in pushing the price up higher at this 250 range. You know, we could have gone up to 330, but it's not going to happen. We're pulling down on the VPVR. The next major cluster of support is down here at 140. So once again, like I said, 160, 140 in the immediate short term, that's where I see it's coming down to in the next couple of weeks to the next month or two. Because once again, remember, I've been saying I've been bearish on KDA for a while. I never told you that we're going to go down in a straight line. And you can see since I've been covering this since 650, it's been all over the place. It's been very, very scattery. But every single time we do have these big over exuberant run-ups followed by bearish engulfing candles, followed by bearish volume, it's always a sign that KDA is about to go down. So with everything we're looking at, traditional markets heading down, the altcoin market came up to the 618 fib and now it's coming back down to the downside. It also tested the weekly EMA ribbons and it's getting rejected from them. Bitcoin looks like it wants to move to the downside. KDA market structure is unchanged. We're looking very, very bearish right now. If we talk about, let's talk about how much more momentum I think is going to be coming in the next couple of days, and then I want to talk about where am I buying Kadena. Once again, reiterating one final time before we come down to this price, where am I buying? And then I want to wrap up this video with where I think Kadena is going with a realistic price target in the next market cycle. So let's wrap up this video. So if we look at the momentum indicators for Kadena, what you can see is on the daily time frame, the MACD is once again flipping to the downside, and we just exceeded the heart line on the MACD. Actually, the last time we flipped bearish above the heart line, we were here, and you can see from here, the next macro move back down, you've got another lower high from the MACD on this quote-unquote bullish flip above the heart line. With the money flow index, you are so overextended right now. If I just get rid of this MACD so we can focus on the MFI a bit more, what you can see is we're literally lollygagging around 75 to 80. This is the vicinity that we've kind of just been coming up and peaking our heads above for the past couple of weeks now. And what you'll see over here, the last time we were really chilling around this 80 region was on the 27th of March, and this is when the price was kind of coming around this $8 region, $7.70, $7.96, $8, round about that region. The money flow index was heavily overextended all the way back here, and now you can see we're literally just chilling around this area of overextension. So while you might have looked at this today and seen, you know, Kadena's down 7%, Kadena's probably down, you know, it's probably going to be down 10% tomorrow, it's going to be down more tomorrow. Coming into the next couple of days, it's going to continue to keep on moving down, in my opinion. But when you look at these momentum indicators, when you look at the money flow index, the money flow index is still saying there's lots of room to move to the downside. MACD hasn't even flipped bearish beneath the heart line. It has flipped bearish, but it is still in bullish territory. The squeeze momentum indicator on the daily time frame beautifully called this top. In fact, we actually started running out of momentum just before the top was in. So the squeeze momentum indicator was kind of saying, hey, you know, we're running out of steam round about here, and you can see it really started to turn tail after we topped out at 260. So in the immediate short term, on the daily time frame for Kadena, it looks like we've got a lot of room to continue with that bearish momentum to the downside. Now, if we head over to the 4 hour, you can see money flow index is pretty beat down. Squeeze momentum indicator is relatively stagnant, and the money flow index is heading down quite dramatically. So what this tells me is, while the direction in the higher time frames is very, very clear, we might still potentially do something like this where, you know, we come down, because once again in the lower time frames we're still very, very bearish. We could come down to like 170, come back up in the next couple of days, and then solidify this region between round about 180 to 190 as resistance. And then this is when I see something like this playing out. We're probably going to bounce from 140. People are going to think the bottom is in again, and then we're going to roll down, come down to this price target round about $1, where I think the bottom is in. I've been saying the bottom is going to be in at $1 for months and months and months and months now. This is where I want to buy Kadena. If I had to say, you know, the ranges where I would start buying, I would buy at the 1.236 down here at 105. So yeah, round about that 105 region, that is where I'm going to be buying. $1.05, $1. You know, once again, if we look over on the volume profiles here, we've got support all the way down to about 80 cents. You really do not want to see 80 cent break, because if you do fall beneath there, we talked about this before, you really don't have much support built down until about 40 cents because there wasn't a lot of volume traded on here. If you can see, Kadena, you know, it basically just had a massive run to the upside without stopping too much. So we don't have too much in support in terms of the volume profile. So if you are going to be buying around here, definitely keep your eyes on around about that 86 cent. If we start dropping from there, it can get a lot more ugly. But like I've been saying for months now, my prediction's been $1. I'm sticking with $1. I don't think it's going to go too much lower. This is what I see playing out for Kadena in the immediate short term. Now, you know where I'm going to be buying Kadena. You know I'm going to start buying at 105. You know I'm going to be buying it down to $1, just below $1. But where do I realistically think Kadena can head off to in the next market cycle? Let's talk about it quickly before we wrap up the video. So at this moment in time, Kadena is at 182. Let's just kind of make the maths a little bit simple. Let's say when Kadena comes down to a $1 valuation, the market cap should be round about that 150 million region. What's 150 million times 100? So implying that Kadena would move up to a $100 valuation. That would mean a market cap of 15 billion. Now, considering Kadena is a relatively, well, I take that back, it's a very innovative smart contracts type blockchain. You can do a lot of building on this. The closest thing I could kind of correlate or say this is similar to is something around the regions of a Solana and ADA. So I'd say Solana, what's the market cap of Solana right now? Convincingly round about that 15 billion region, where I think it's very likely Kadena could head up to in the next market cycle. So a 15 billion market cap for Kadena would mean a $100 valuation, meaning if, like myself, you're hoping to buy this down at the $1 region, we could literally have 100x, and down at 150 million market cap, I would definitely say, you know, your risk adjusted returns of buying KDA are not going to be too bad. I don't think buying KDA at $1 is a bad idea. I definitely think that's a good idea. And what's also interesting is if we're looking at this, we're currently looking at the price of Solana in a bear market. So we're saying, you know, once again, round about that 15 billion market cap is where we expect Kadena to move up to. If we look at the market cap history all time for Solana, you can see this really only started trading round about that 2020 region, and within one cycle, a couple of cycles or so, well, a couple of years or so, we moved up to a valuation of 78 billion. So me saying a 15 billion valuation, once again, expecting there's going to be more investors in crypto, there's going to be more institutions in crypto, there's going to be more retail in crypto, there's going to be more money in the economy. I don't think a 15 billion valuation for Kadena is out of the blue. So subsequently, $1 and then 100x, that is exactly what I think is going to be playing out for KDA. I would not be buying at this moment in time. I still think we're going down to lower price targets. So yeah, just a quick update. I say quick, but this is probably coming up for 20 minutes. That's all I've got for you today, my friends. As I'm sure many of you have realized, I have stopped, at least in the immediate short term, stopped covering these altcoins every single day. Honestly, if you go back through my channel, you can see for the past couple of months, we've talked about everything Kadena. We've talked about everything that you can expect. Really, nothing's changed. So I don't want to just keep on regurgitating this information. I want to be switching back to making daily uploads for these altcoins when I think the bottom is in. You know, it's getting very boring just making videos every day, having the price go to the downside and saying, hey, nothing's changed, $1 still in play, and then people asking me, is this target still in play, is this target still in play? Everything's still in play. 14,000 Bitcoin, $1 KDA. That is what I think is going to be going on. I'll be keeping you up to date with KDA. The next time I see a major move, I won't be updating it daily, but if we do have a fairly exuberant move, the next time we have a major break to the downside, I will be letting you know. Daily EMA ribbons, like we said, we'd update you on these when we flipped bullish. We came back down for the back test and we failed it. So if you do see Kadena on the daily time frame close beneath $1.83, it's going to be very ugly for the price action in the next week or so. That's all I've got for you today, my friends. And as always, cowboy out. Peace.